Hello everyone, Daniela here from Addo Aesthetics, and welcome to week 2 of Marketing Month. I am joined again by my dear friend and colleague Nicole Simpson. Nicole is a licensed esthetician. She is the founder of the Global Aesthetics Group and aesthetics influencer. So welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So we're going to continue Marketing Month, and today we are talking about marketing with your retail sales, marketing visually. How do you display those in a way that's going to increase your sales? And I know that you have quite a bit of experience on this topic. And I've got experience quite a bit myself, so it'll be a really interesting conversation. But you have worked globally, educating different practices how to streamline their retail and really how to create best practices. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. If you want to go ahead and start off with, maybe listing some of your best practices for visual marketing when it comes to your retail products.
It's so funny, Daniela, because I have traveled a lot of different countries around the world. And, in the US, we've been selling skincare products out of our spas and our medical practices for quite some time now. And the market is booming. It's growing so fast. It's even outperforming what the projections were a couple of years ago. And globally, that trend is starting to catch on. But one of the things I so consistently see when people make the decision to sell product, they think, okay, I'm going to pick a really good product lineup. I'm going to stock my shelves with these beautiful products. And then I'm going to sit back and wait for them to grow feet and walk off the shelf and for money to land in my wallet. And it's just
if
so
you know that they will come.
Exactly. And part of that's true. I mean, you've always got the retail junkies. I'm one of them. If I'm sitting in a waiting room and you've got products, you better believe whether I know the product or not. I'm touching them. I'm putting them on. I want to play with them. But over the years, I have had the luxury of just developing best practices that I've seen so that when you're in an office, whether you're a solo esthetician or a physician, office manager, wherever you land and sit in this industry right now, we can help you just really make the best of it. Making the decision to sell skincare products and to sell items at retail is a huge commitment. And I think when people sometimes jump in, it's not always clear how much effort and what you have to do behind the scenes to really make it work. It is its own business entity. A lot of successful practices that I know of around the world actually make, dispensing cosmeceuticals or selling products its own business unit, its own portion of the practice. Mm-hmm. But when you do a great job with it, you can use those revenues to grow other portions of your practice. You could use it to add headcounts. You could use it to buy another laser. You could use it to expand your real estate if you're growing. And, there's so many benefits to focusing on it. And it's very important that if you're going to do it, you get it right. So I can just share. I'll start sharing best practices. Daniela, please jump in because I know you've got them too.
Well, I just want to have one quick question about what you just said before we talk about best practices.
Sure.
Do you have any idea what kind of the average is, the average profit margin or average profit for a practice of retail sales of someone who's doing it right? Like how much the retail sales can.
Yeah. I've seen ranges, and this really depends on a lot more than just doing well at selling retail. It depends on, do you have foot traffic? Are you street level in a big city? Are you in a suburban area? How many patients do you see? How many providers are there estheticians recommending? So there are factors that influence it, but I see ranges that go maybe to $250,000 a year in sales that are good. And then I see my second range that is about 250 to about 500,000 in sales, and then I see like my super stellar tier that can hit anywhere from 1 to 2 million in sales. So that's not profit, that's top line total revenue. Mm-hmm. Obviously the profit will manage or depend on what's happening in the clinic, but I mean I do see it across the board. But I would say that if you want to, and this is something that I did learn in one of my past lives in education, but if you want to sell $100,000 a year in retail, you've got to sell 3 to 4 products a day. Who are about average mid-range. So if you think about what your clients need, an antioxidant, they need a sunscreen, they need a growth factor, a peptide, a moisturizer, you sell them a complete regimen, one person a day, you're already at $100,000 a year in retail sales. So it's something where if you put this into context, really it's up to you. You can project where you want to be. And so I think a lot of clinics get the $250,000 number from what's happening around them. And I would say that's probably more common than not. But if you know that you want to be at 500,000 in retail, just work your way backwards. So if you want to sell 500,000 this year, how many units do you have to sell per month, per week, per day? Those become the goals of your office. And this can really help you reach that number.
So what I do, the way that I measure it, because I work primarily with estheticians on how to increase their retail sales, I talk to them about having a retail to service percentage and understanding what that is. And I think also, that can really help the practice manager do the projections as well. And, it's as simple, depending on where you work. If you're in a day spa or resort spa, I suggest getting your retail to service percentage at 50%. It's a high goal, but it's completely doable. And essentially what that means is if you had if you sold $1,000 of services in a day, then you would need to sell $500 worth of product. Now in med spas, this can be a little more tricky because the cost of treatment is much higher when you are looking at lasers, especially if you're doing, a cool sculpting or something that's, in the thousands of dollars. Obviously it's going to be harder to hit that retail to service percentage. I typically suggest a 30% as a good goal. I think that that's really where excellent practices are. What I've seen as I've trained primarily across the US and Canada is that most places are at about 5 to 7%. And wow. So there's a huge area of opportunity there that, yes. To increase their profits through retail sales. And one of the ways that you do that, is by the visual marketing of them. It's just like food. You eat with your eyes first, if your products are just hidden over in a corner and just collecting dust, nobody's going to be interested in that. So
you really remind me of what my previous boss used to tell me. He used to say to me all the time when we would talk about like educating on retail, and he would say, when you go to the grocery store and you really love yogurt and you've got this favorite yogurt and you can't find it on the shelf, and then you look and there's like that one lone yogurt left and it's sitting in the back and you have to reach in and get it. Are you really actually going to buy that one? Probably not. So having the visual merchandising is key. And one of the things that I will tell you here that is a really good piece of advice that, as estheticians and as people who work in the care industry, we are conditioned to care. We want to nurture. We want to be there and massage our clients' faces and create an experience. It's very experiential. But you have to remember, before the client comes in and after they leave, they are still a consumer. They are being bombarded by marketing messages all the time and being conditioned to consume and buy and try. So whether or not they say it to you, they have the same expectation from you. So if you want to be successful in retail, that visual component, I can't, explain just how important that is. So one of the rules, coming back to 80-20, we talked about 80-20 last week. I've got one. When you are developing your visual merchandising on your shelves, you really want to focus on 80% dedicated to products and 20% dedicated to props. How many times have you walked into a store or to a place where there's just too much going on, you've got too many props and decorations and things around, it distracts from the products? Your product should be the story. They should be well organized. You want 80% of the focus to be on the products itself. And we always say that eye level is buy level. So where your client stands and they focus with their eyes, that's going to be what they purchase. So the products that you want to sell the most of should be directly at eye level. And when you look at the number of products that should be on a shelf, we always say you want to have 3 to 6 of each SKU. Even if the boxes are empty, you want it to look like you've got a full assortment of products for them available to take and try, because it gives them the impression that you have a healthy, thriving retail business. Mm-hmm. It's all subliminal. They may not be actively thinking this, but trust me, it makes a huge difference. So 80% product, 20% props, 3 to 6 of each product you're selling. Eye level is buy level is one of the very first places that we can start.
Eye level is buy level.
It's true. It works. Think about it. Next time, do the experiment yourself. Go to Target. Okay, go to your favorite beauty aisle at Target and just look at what's in front of you. And these are going to be the products that you see most of the time on social media or that you see on TV commercials. And if you look down at the bottom and up at the top, these are the products that typically don't produce. They're put there very specifically and strategically for a reason. Another really good place you can go to do this experiment is Bath & Body Works. They are the masters of retail merchandising. as kind of traditional as the stores are, they've been around for a long time. If you go, their best sellers are always right where you can stare them in the face.
I can't go in that store because it smells too much. But visually, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Another thing I can tell you that in retail, and this is a really old rule, you've probably heard it before, but the rule of 3s, 5s, and 7s works. So think about the last time, gosh, I don't even want to bring up this example, but when you go to Victoria's Secret, buy 3, get 1 free, 5 for 35, 7 for 37, and you end up stocking up on all of your favorites because they've shown you that the value of this bundle that you're purchasing is a much better buy than you go and buy yourself. It works better than 2, 4, 6. So when you think about maybe product groupings, try 3. Buy 3, get a free peel. Buy 5, get a free, I don't know, microneedling treatment. Something where you can really sell volume into the hands of a client who may not have purchased a full regimen from you before. And this can all be set up through your visual marketing.
So let's talk about kind of what I've always referred to as kind of writing your winners. Sending a clear message with retail. What I've noticed in a lot of spas that I go in is they have some product reps that do a great job. And so they end up having 5 different creams for dry skin. They have 4 different retinols. They have, 3 different growth factors. There's just not a clear message. So how do you feel about that? I'm curious.
I agree with you, and you guys will hear a word from me a lot when it comes to retail, and the word is called streamlining. I think in any successful retail endeavor, it's good to avoid confusion, like you said, by having too many products. And there's a couple of aspects to look at it here. You have to look at it from a client education and confusion type scenario, which we'll talk about. And then you have to look at it from a business and a revenue driving scenario too. So think about, if you have maybe multiple estheticians in your practice, and maybe esthetician Daniela loves a specific moisturizer, and then the other esthetician loves a different one. All of Daniela's clients are going to be on a specific moisturizer. The other lady's clients are going to be on a different one. What happens if Daniela's out for the day and the lady has to go see another esthetician, and she's told that the moisturizer that she's on isn't her favorite and she should try something else? Now the client loses trust in what her recommendation was. There's confusion. She's switching regimens, and it really doesn't look good for your business. So you want to think about streamlining. Pick the best of each category. I know that you guys know who these are. Pick the best antioxidants to sell. Pick the best growth factors to sell. Pick the best sunscreens, the best cleansers, the best eye creams. 1 of each. Maximum 2 if you maybe need choices for skin types. But focus there, because then you can develop your top 10 wish list, or your top 10 performing list, I should say. That makes a huge significant difference. So if you know that you've got a top 10 that works, you get the best result for your client, the best products, it reduces the confusion, and it really makes it very clear that you guys believe that you do have the best of the best to treat very specific skin conditions. From a business point of view, if you look at the sales, and this is something where maybe we can do this in the write-up, I can give an example, but if you compare the sales, if you've got 5 different moisturizers, you might sell $500 a month on one, $200 a month on another, $300 a month on another. You're dividing your revenue across these different products. Whereas if you focus your sales into this top 10, where everybody gets an amazing antioxidant, an amazing product per category, you could see sometimes 3, 5, 10 times the lift in sales by being hyper-focused on selling the best of each category. And so the best advice I can give you is, if you've got multiple lines, multiple brands, avoid the confusion for your client, do your business a favor, and start streamlining and choose the best of the best that you can offer your clients.
I love that. Yeah. So it's really about having one clear message from the practice.
Yes.
So our business believes that this is the best antioxidant. Yes. And our business believes this is the best sunscreen, and it's okay to have, I see this specifically with sunscreens, as long as there's, and moisturizers too, but sunscreens, I know I have 2 sunscreens that are 2 of my very favorite, and they're from 2 different brands, but they have very different textures, So it's one that I recommend for people that don't like to feel like they have a whole lot of product on their face, and another one is a little more creamy, and so it just feels more high. So they still have a differentiation. So
true.
that's okay. But if I have two products that are equivalent for skin types or whatnot, then we want to kind of streamline that out, because what a patient will say when they're given too many choices, the automatic response is no.
Exactly.
It's
overwhelming.
And it's even overwhelming for your staff. It's overwhelming for the estheticians. Think about a new esthetician coming in and, maybe they don't know the product lines that you carry. And, trying to explain to them the difference between these two products that cater towards the same patient can be challenging. So I'm glad we're on the same page with that.
It's true. And, I always tell people that the most expensive products you can have are the products that sit on the shelf. So if you've got five, the same type of product just sitting there not being productive for you, that's now considered unproductive inventory. You paid a lot more to buy it and to store it than you did to put the efforts into selling it. So this also helps alleviate that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So don't be afraid to, print out your retail inventory, run a report, see what your top sellers have been. And that's why I use the term ride your winners. It's, what is selling in your practice? What are your winners there? And anything that's in the bottom, your bottom 10 if you sold one of them in, the past 2 or 3 months, get rid of it. It's taking up too much space, and there's no rule that says that you can't order that. There's no rule that says that you can't say, oh, this particular client needs that and let me order it in. But you have limited space. And so, really focusing on those products that are selling and sending a clear message will certainly increase your numbers.
Absolutely. If you look at retail sometimes too, I know this is getting really businessy and hopefully it doesn't get too deep, but think about also, retail, when you look at major spas, major department stores, and places where retail is thriving, that number always comes down to sales per square foot. How much are you selling per square foot? And that real estate, imagine a lot of you in clinics have a small amount of space. If you've got just a small shelf where you put, your retail products to sell, inventory that's not moving becomes very, very expensive for you. Every real piece of real estate you have should be producing revenue. Now, the exception to this would be if you've got a really stellar product that's not selling that should be selling. If it's maybe a cult favorite, like someone's favorite growth factor, or maybe a very famous antioxidant, and it's not selling, you might also just want to take a deep dive into the reasons why. Is it an educational thing? Is it, maybe the esthetician had a bad reaction to it and doesn't feel comfortable recommending it. And so you should also consider those things too. But if it's just a case of being duplicate products, get rid of them.
Awesome advice. So let's shift the conversation a little bit into sampling. That is something that I feel like has, pretty strong opinions on both sides of the aisle. There's people who are just for it and think it's the best thing ever, and there's people who are very much against it. So I'm going to just open my book and let you know that I'm actually against sampling. And the reason being is because I don't think that people buy when you sample. In my experience, in the practices that I've worked at, they don't buy. And so what I do when I'm making my recommendation is I say, purchase these products. I'm so confident that they'll work for you that, we'll take your pictures in the beginning. We'll take your pictures at the end of, 6 to 8 weeks. That they can go through a full skin cycle. If the products didn't make real changes in their skin, I'll take them back.
Right.
I'm that confident in it. But with sampling, you're really not going to see the changes in the skin in, the 5 days that the sample will last or however long. And so what I do with my sample products is actually give them to my clients that are traveling, or give them as, something as just like a little added value gift. Oh, you're going on travel here, take these. These will be easier, to fit in your little quart size bag or something.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. And I do get beat up around the world sometimes, depending on how people feel about this, because sometimes there's cultural implications on sampling and things like that. But in general, I have also seen the case that samples don't really work for multiple reasons. First of all, it conditions your clients to receiving something free from you, which is never a good thing. If you're going to discount something where you've got margins and wiggle room, like an inexpensive service. Don't discount your products. And so if you start conditioning people to think like, oh, you're going to get something free, they start thinking, how else can they move in that direction? So I don't think sampling is a good thing from the start for that. I also think that samples can be helpful. And I agree with everything you said, Daniela, completely, because, even with the little samples you get from manufacturers, they're not enough to really cause skin change. You really need about 90 days, few exceptions out there. Samples don't last 90 days. So if you're going to use samples, use them for other reasons. One thing I've seen work is people using them for line extension. So if you've got people already on a really expensive, maybe growth factor or a very expensive antioxidant, and you really want them to buy an eye cream because you know that they need it, sample but only with a purchase and say, okay, you're going to buy this antioxidant, you're going to buy this other product, but I'm going to sample you the eye cream. I'll call you in 2 weeks if it's working. We can ship it to your house, or you can come back and repurchase. So I've seen that work. I've seen it for sensitivity testing in people who have legitimate skin sensitivity issues. I have seen this. I always get beat up for this one too, but I have seen people sell their samples and say, okay, for $10, I'm going to give you these 3 little samples. If you come back to purchase the full size, within a certain amount of time, I'll give you $10 towards the product. So essentially it's, for people who you feel are legitimately interested in trying the product first, that's a way to get them back. But I would never do that without a good call to action, and then only with a purchase. Like I said before, I never
haven't heard that one before, selling the actual samples. I guess I have heard, they have the larger like travel size. There's the baby samples, and then there's kind of those travel size ones.
Yeah.
I have heard certain practices selling those or putting them in little mini like post-care kits or something like that, but not the actual samples.
I think the thing is you've got to make it comfortable for you. And, a lot of times sales can be unnerving, and it takes time to build up your confidence to really, Daniela, like you just said, hey, I'm so confident that these products are going to work for you. You're buying them today. No, I'm not giving you a sample. It takes time to work into that relationship with your client. So, I have seen samples be more of like a crutch or a learning tool versus a selling tool. And I would say, that can really come back to hurt you in the end. So I actually don't think sampling is fantastic. Use them when you really need to add value to something. If you need to give a sample to sell 3 products, okay, fine, give a sample. If you need to give a sample to add value to maybe a package or a promotion that you're working on, give a sample. If you need to do it to grow the regimen the client's on and to build their trust in you, give a sample. That's what they're there for. Don't just sample by default, because, you really get that client used to that, and it really makes it much harder to sell down the line.
Awesome advice. So to recap what we've talked about with visual marketing for retail sales, eye level is buy level. I love that.
I get that.
Having 3 to 6 of each item on display, writing your winners, in a sense, like going through your actual retail, finding out what works for you, making sure that you have one of each product for each condition. So in essence, not having 10 creams for dry skin. Right. And then we talked about sampling. Anything else that I missed in our recap?
My gosh, there's always stuff that we can talk about, but I think we've hit the main points. If you guys need some inspiration for good marketing and merchandising, go spend an afternoon at Nordstrom. Go spend an afternoon at Bath & Body Works. Go spend an afternoon looking for clean lines, modern visualization, things that resonate with you. There's tons of social media accounts out there with really good retail. You can get on Pinterest. And we'll list out some of our favorites too. And we'll try to list out maybe some examples of the clinics who do it really, really well. One more thing. Testers.
Oh, testers. How could we forget testers? Now,
okay,
I am a believer in testers.
Me too. 30 seconds on this, okay? If you don't have your products out to touch, feel, try, you're not going to sell your products. People need to bond with textures. They need to bond with absorption rates. They need to feel this before you sell it. And in our industry, these skincare products are not cheap. They have value. You want to have your testers out. So many times I've seen clinics with testers locked behind a cabinet. Who's really going to go ask this receptionist, hey, can you unlock your cabinet so I can play with your testers? No one's going to do that. So have them out. yes, your testers are going to get stolen, but the amount of money you're going to make in sales by having your testers out and available versus by having things locked behind a shelf will far outweigh maybe the 1 or 2 testers that you'll lose. And plus, if your rep is really nice, they might replace them for you. But definitely have them out.
And I think it depends on the size of your practice as well, because I've seen a lot of accounts, a lot of reps that will actually just provide the testers if your account is doing enough in sales, which is, it never hurts to ask. The worst thing that they'll say is no, so.
Exactly. Always ask. Always ask that. But testers, put them out there. It doesn't matter where they are. Ideally, you want them in your retail setup, but as long as they're available for people to engage with the products, it's going to make your retail setup just that much more successful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great advice. Perfect.
No.
Well, I'm glad that we didn't miss the testers. And thank you, everyone, for watching week 2 of May's Marketing Month. We will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.